This is episode 4 of the Shame Proof Your Life podcast, the one where I blame myself. I'm your host and shame coach, Danita Bremer. In this podcast, I tell stories from my life to fulfill a prompting I've had for far too long. I help you tell your story in a way that you see you aren't alone and there's nothing wrong with you. I want you to stop believing the lie you aren't enough so you can live a life of freedom and fulfillment the way God intended. All right, welcome back. We are on episode 4. So amazing. First of all, I just want to remind you that this podcast is totally all my experience. And yes, I have training as a life coach. Totally, I've used those tools to help myself with many of these things, but not all of my experiences are going to translate to your experiences and help you the way that they have helped me. So take what helps and leave the rest. If I say something here or suggest something here that doesn't sit right with you or you just don't like it, then it's totally an option to ignore that. Today, I want to tell you a story about my role in when my dad lost his job. Now, this is a story about me blaming myself. And I kind of feel like most of us have experiences with blaming ourselves for something that we really shouldn't have. Or maybe we could take the inverse of not taking responsibility for something that we should have. Okay, so in this story, I think I was 5 years old. I know I was in kindergarten, and it was early in the morning. It could have been a weekend even. I don't really know, but, um okay, today I wanna tell you a story about a time when I blamed myself, and my guess is that most of us have experiences like this in our lives where we've blamed ourselves unnecessarily, or perhaps you can take the inverse and think of a time when you didn't take responsibility for something you should have. But in this story, I was only 5 years old, and the first thing I remember is that I was awake early in the morning watching Looney Tunes. I'm pretty sure it was Bugs Bunny that was on TV, and the volume was down really low, and I was sitting pretty close to the TV because I didn't wanna wake my parents up. And at some point, while I was sitting there watching TV, my dad's alarm went off, and I crept into my mom and dad's bedroom. They are both still asleep on the bed, and my dad's alarm was going off. It was sitting there's a little table next to his side of the bed, and it was like, "Eat, eat, eat, eat," right? I don't wanna bug your ears too much with an alarm sound. The thing I remember the most is standing there right in front of my dad who was sleeping and not knowing what to do, right? In my little 5-year-old brain, I was thinking, "Why isn't he waking up? Maybe he doesn't wanna wake up." But then why wouldn't why would he set an alarm? Maybe he does wanna wake up. Should I wake him up? And remember, I was very shy, even I think I mentioned in one of the previous episodes, to the point of where sometimes I was scared of my dad, not because I thought he was gonna hurt me, but he's just, like I said before, he was just this really big presence. And he was a little bit what's the word? I didn't know what to expect, right? And so I think even at this point at 5 years old, I realized that there was a possibility that if I woke him up and I shouldn't have, that I would somehow be in trouble. And but then I just kept thinking like, but why is his alarm going off and nobody's waking up? So as I'm standing there having this battle with myself, my dad wakes up and his eyes fly open. He looks at the alarm, he looks at me, and he's like, "Oh, crap," right? Probably with a curse word. And he's getting dressed and he's asking me, "Why didn't you wake me up?" Not totally not in a way that he's accusing me of anything, but just like, "You were standing there and the alarm was going off. Why didn't you wake me up?" Like, I could see how I might be curious with my own child. And as a 5-year-old, I kind of took that as like a blame, right? Like, I should have known better. I should have waken him up. I was dumb to stand there not knowing what to do. And what happened from there is that I ended up that one little moment, I blamed myself for that because my dad rushed off to work. And then I don't know how long later, 30 minutes, 60 minutes, 2 hours later, he came home and he had lost his job. He was a trash truck driver. And so, objectively speaking, probably wasn't like the best job in the world. But considering that was the only income, it was a big deal. After that, we moved out of that house that we were renting and we moved into this little trailer, like a camping trailer, not a pop-up trailer. It had like aluminum walls or whatever. It was silver. But it was like a 8 or 10-foot trailer with a bed that you could turn into like a table and benches, and it had like a little miniature sink and a little tiny bathroom and a little closet and things like that. So it wasn't an RV, but it was like a camping trailer. And we lived in that trailer, my mom, my dad, myself, and my little sister, for the remainder of the school year, which I don't know exactly how long it was, but several months. Like, I think we're about halfway through the school year. And then after that, we moved up from the San Diego area to Washington State. And my mom kind of was pretty miserable. And again, I don't really remember much from, being 2, 3, 4 years old. I have a few memories here and there, but I do know that she didn't really want to move. And my dad's parents didn't really like her. She didn't really like them. And then, of course, there's the period of time where we had no running water or electricity. And I remember hearing her say things like, "I just want to be able to take a bath." Right. So I think I took that one little moment of I didn't wake my dad up when the alarm was going off and I blamed myself. And that turned into years and years of like, I could have done something different. I could have changed the outcome. If I had done it differently, then maybe my parents would be happier. Maybe we would have more money. Maybe our lives would be different. And I like held on to all of that until I was probably almost 35 years old. I can't remember exactly how old I was at the time, but I was an adult with my own young children at the time. And I don't remember what kind of sparked me reflecting on this, but I do distinctly remember realizing that I had been harboring this guilt for most of my entire life unnecessarily. So, what I want to offer to you here is first of all, one thing I learned from this is to make sure my kids know when something is happening between, I don't know, in my marriage or just in the family, to make sure that they know that it's not their fault, right? Because one thing is, I don't think my parents even realized that I had blamed myself, but I kind of wish that if I could go back in time, I kind of wish that they had told me this isn't your fault. This is just something that happens to some people sometimes. And just subconsciously, I just kind of felt like I had some kind of sway in the world, I guess. And I don't know, maybe that's a good thing overall, maybe not. But in this case, it caused me to really hang on to a lot of guilt that I believe turned into shame. I harbored that guilt for long enough that it sort of embedded itself in my psyche, in my identity, and became a I'm not good. I'm not whole because I made this giant mistake that changed the trajectory of our lives. Okay, so I have some questions to help you, if any of this resonates with you, to kind of figure out if there's anything in your life that you are subconsciously blaming yourself for. What are you holding on to? What do you think is your fault? What do you still feel guilty about? What do you feel could have changed the course of your life if you had made a different decision? Those are the questions to help you discover if there are any subconscious, you know, guilt experiences in your life. And if you find anything, I want you to ask yourself, does this guilt play a useful role or can I let it go? So, in some cases, guilt might be useful. It might be telling you that what you did or didn't do was out of line with your values, in which case you have the opportunity to make it right. But my guess is that if you're anything like me and something happened in your childhood, even if you were an older child, a teenager or something like that, it's still, can you objectively say that it was your responsibility or your fault? Because if not, you have an opportunity to just decide to let it go. And that means letting go everything that came with it, right? Because for my little 5-year-old brain, it was I made the wrong choice in that one moment, which led to this cascade of events that if I had made a different choice would possibly make things different. And none of that is true. I remember distinctly the moment in my 30s where I realized I was hanging on to this story as it was my fault and I could have or should have done something different. And I thought, oh my gosh, it wasn't my fault. My parents were adults. I was a kid. It wasn't my fault. And in that moment, I was just able to like let go of years and years of blaming myself. And as the adult looking back on the situation, I could confidently say that the child in me thought if things had gone differently that day, then maybe the whole course of our lives would have gone differently. But the adult me knows that nothing big would have changed. My parents still would have had money problems no matter what. They still would have fought and argued and had a rocky relationship no matter what, right? And me not waking my dad up that day doesn't have the ability to sway like four people's entire futures. That's just not how it works. So I hope this helps you. If you want to talk through your specific experience, go to my website, danitabrummer.com, and sign up for a free session because I know that life is messy, life is nuanced, it's not straightforward. And sometimes we need help kind of teasing apart things and the story from the fact and all of that. So I feel completely blessed that I don't know. I think God sent me here to this earth being a very self aware person, child and adult, but not everyone has that gift. And that's part of what I do as a life coach is help people reflect, help people change their stories, help people let go of the guilt and shame that is burdening them. Okay, that's enough for now. And so are you. I promise. I promise that's true. Until next time, go be you and follow the spirit. If you're interested in life coaching, please visit my website at danitabrummer.com and schedule a free session. You can also connect with me on Instagram. I'm at Danita Bremer Coaching.